Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Anupama, Professor at Department of Economics, Punjabi University, Patiala. I am here talking on behalf of Dr. Philinder Kumar Sudan, Professor, Department of Economics, University of Jammu. I am going to talk about the module, the concept of population dynamics and climate change adaptation from demography of climate change adaptation. So students, we are going to discuss about the growth and structure of population and how it influences the climate. The dynamics of demography and their associations with other factors have potential environmental threats. It is resurgent in the wake of increasing concern about climate change. Rapid population growth is widely portrayed as a major driver of climate change. Urbanization is often cited as an important driver of increasing emissions. The changes in population composition and their implications for improvement and adaptation receive small attention outside the demographic community. Simplistic assumptions about demographic trends and their impacts weaken emission scenario and lead to misleading policy suggestions. With this backdrop, this module reviews some of the critical issues involving the relationship between climate change and each of the three major components of demographic trends, that is the growth, distribution and the composition. So this module aims to throw light on how we understand the size, structure and dynamics of human population influence and are influenced by changing climate, and to support the global, national and regional investment in two-way work on the linkages between population dynamics and climate change. Let us talk about population growth and environmental change. The decline in population size and growth will go a long way towards solving the world's major problems which are related to climate change. This decline in population could be easily achieved by family planning programs. In spite of the pressure of Northern Perspective, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is IPCC, has played a key role in mitigation and adaptation efforts. Population projections constitute implicitly or explicitly the backbone of greenhouse gas emissions scenario. In its 2007 report, IPCC talks about population, but without getting into the specifics of population dynamics and generally with negative implications. Therefore, there is a need for a more deep understanding of the role of demographic dynamics on global climate change. The Northern Perspective overstates its case for population control, while the IPCC understates the importance of demographic factors and policies. This reflects the gap between long-standing misinterpretation and divergence pertaining to the actual significance of population dynamics for environmental change. The population and environmental debate has long been occupied with ideological overtones and substantive oversimplifications. There are strengths and limits of population programs in explaining climate change. Thus, there is a need for better understanding of population dynamics in context of global climate change so as to redesign the population policies. Population, economic growth and greenhouse gas emissions. The size and growth of population affects the dimension and gravity of environmental problems. The global population and economic growth are threatening the current technological and environmental aspects. The current consumption levels have grave environmental problems. Many more planets would be required to provide the resources for allowing the rest of the world population to reach the same standard of living which presently are enjoyed by industrialized countries. During the second half of the 20th century, world population increased from 2.5 billion in 1950 to 6.1 billion in 2000 and further to above 7 billion in 2011. However, this increase in population was smaller than the growth in world GNP during the same period and much smaller than the fourfold increase in carbon emissions. In the 21st century, global climate change will rely on the interaction of these three trajectories. The demographic processes have determined short and mid-term outlooks more predictably than economic trends or environmental fields. But at the same time, population projection is a difficult task. In the past half century, most of the countries could easily be classified into tidy compartments. The developed countries have high income and low fertility, while poor and developing countries have low income and high fertility. The traditional association between development and population has recently become blurred. There has been extensive and unexpectedly rapid decline in birth rates in the developing world. The situation of population explosions are currently restricted to most of the sub-Saharan countries and a few other isolated countries such as Palestine, Afghanistan, Lesser Timor and Yemen. Contrary to this, in recent years, the number of low fertility countries has shrunk noticeably. Only Eastern European countries and Russia continue to have low and declining below replacement fertility. As against all expectations, Northern Europeans have more babies, with several countries now anticipating steady population growth through the middle of the century. In the United States, vigorous fertility rates that are expected to remain high in the near future. Various developing countries currently have the low fertility rates that till date were found only in high-income countries. Now we can discuss the policies linking population growth. The vastly growing population is posing threat to global environmental security. The human beings are facing environmental challenges ranging from ozone depletion to waste disposal. This is made more difficult by a larger population size. However, this kind of broad perception is insufficient to characterize the actual influence of population dynamics on environmental outcomes in general and on climate change in particular. For this, there is a need to consider, number one, the limits of what can be achieved through efforts to reduce population growth and size. Number two, the effect that such a reduction of population can have on improvement of climate change. And number three, the importance of other continuing demographic processes. Large number of women still cannot have the number of children they desire. There is even a large gap between actual and desired family size among the fastest growing demographic groups in developed countries. The human rights based policies empower the women and address their unmet needs for reproductive health services in developed, developing, or least developed countries. This would have an important impact on decreasing rate of population growth and the size of world population. Women would have more control over their lives, especially on reproduction. This would also have serious implications on climate change. Thus, everything possible should be done to provide women with the means to achieve their desired family size. In a number of countries, large-scale family planning programs have experienced very slow and deliberate fertility decline. Fertility has also decreased in some poor countries or regions having exceptional social and institutional structures, such as Kerala in India. This, however, only reinforces the lesson that some minimal social improvements are important to motivate people to have a smaller number of children. The family planning programs motivate people to perceive that limiting fertility, which would yield some increment in well-being. It will empower the woman to take control over their lives. Given the linkages between development and fertility decline, a reduction in population growth does not essentially lead to reduced consumption. It should take into account the fact that when development quickened by urbanization unfolds sufficiently to encourage people to reduce their fertility, it inevitably increases their consumption levels as well. Thus, although it is clear that fertility decline is absolutely essential for sustainability in the long term, it is only the starting point for more effective measures addressing consumption. The consumption level and its impact on emissions are still comparatively low. Reducing population growth will not represent a major boost to global mitigation efforts. The social transformations are necessary to motivate the adoption of family planning, which are likely to have an equally significant but opposite impact on increased consumption. In the long run, demographic processes will reduce poverty and underdevelopment. It is important for global mitigation efforts to achieve lower population growth. Now we can talk about urbanization and the sustainable use of space. In the context of environmental change, there has always been a complete focus on some demographic factors like population size and its rate of growth. However, population dynamics also involve the changing distribution of population over space as well as its evolving composition over time. The spatial measurement of population and its relation to environmental dynamics call for much greater attention than it has received so far. The fight for a sustainable environment future is being waged primarily in the world cities where population, economic activity, and the environmental issues are increasingly concentrated. In contrast to the typical belief, higher levels of urbanization can constitute a positive factor in dealing with population and various environmental problems. Cities themselves present both the problems and solutions to sustainability challenges in the context of urbanization. Large urban agglomerations may require fewer resources per capita than smaller towns and cities or their rural counterparts. In order to fulfill potentialities for long-term sustainability of cities, changes in approaches and policies are required. The city's own decisions have far-reaching effects, and conversely, climatic or ecosystem changes may have a local impact. Poorly managed urban development can have destructive local and even global consequences. Urban population is likely to rise quickly and continuously, reaching almost 6.2 billion people in 2050. Almost 95% of this future growth will be concentrated in developing countries, especially in Africa and Asia. This revolution will have vast implications for climate change. Given the increasing concentration and magnitude of economic production in urban localities, as well as the higher living standards that urbanites enjoy by comparison to rural populations. Urban attention will also be critical for improvement and adaptation efforts in view of the greater vulnerability of urban populations to some of the more dangerous consequences of global climate change. For the most part, however, the importance of urbanization and urban growth for environmental change and, in particular, the climate change has not been properly depicted. Vulnerability of urban populations, mainly in low-lying coastal zones or urban slums, is also highlighted. However, the inherent advantage of urban areas for mitigation or their potential advantages for adaptation are not elaborated. From the beginning, the modern environmental movement was concerned with the focus on rural areas. Generally, there are two most vital anthropogenic activities associated with urbanization, which include changes in land use and the increase in greenhouse gases. Now let us discuss about policy implications regarding urbanization and urban growth. The extent of urban growth that developing countries are going to face in coming decades has no parallel in history. The world's urban population is likely to show an increase of over 2.9 billion people between now and 2050. Most of this increase would be in Asia and Africa. Furthermore, how, where, and in what conditions such growth will occur will have a huge impact on poverty reduction as well as sustainability. In contrast to existing arguments, densely populated urban areas can become an important supporter for long-term sustainability and especially in efforts to mitigate global climate change, cities are the primary for environmentally favorable technological innovations. If cities are designed and administered efficiently, the compactness and economies of scale of cities can reduce per capita costs and energy demand while also minimizing pressures on surrounding land and natural resources. High-density agglomerations can also be useful in avoiding such problems as deforestation and loss of biodiversity, while generally helping to optimize the rational use of resources and the provision of cost-effective environmental services. The dispersion of existing population would, in most cases, aggravate pressures on ecosystems. Furthermore, urbanization itself is a powerful factor in fertility decline. Historically, fertility decline has always taken place first and quickest in the cities, making urbanization a strong supporter in fertility reduction efforts. Longer-term urban sustainability depends on the ability of the policymakers to take a broader view of the utilization of space and to link local developments with their global consequences. The developed and developing countries experience different sets of challenges and opportunities. One advantage that potentially benefits developing countries is that much of their urban growth is yet to realize, which gives them the opportunity to make more sustainable use of space at lesser human and financial cost. In order to take advantage of this opportunity, a radical change in the anti-urbanization stance taken by many developing country policymakers who still try to impede or slow urban growth rather than prepare ahead of it, for it will be urgently required. Now it is important to examine the relevance of demographic composition. It is important to discuss how changes and differences in population composition affect GHG emissions. According to Jiang and Hardy, population groups of different demographic composition in both developed as well as developing countries, small versus large households, rural versus urban areas, and young versus elderly have significantly different consumption and emission behaviors. And the proportion of population groups with significantly different consumption and emission behavior changes considerably over time. Therefore, there is a need for more disaggregated approach to demographic factors to quantify the scale of their impacts on greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. In short, it is suggested that considering only population size as the demographic variable in climate models, as in the IPCC report, leads to an underestimation of the real contribution of population to climate change. However, current studies on the effect of household size are largely drawn from developed country experiences. In addition, smaller households can be seen to be as much a part of consumption as they are of population. They represent a choice in lifestyles and levels of comfort that lead to higher consumption. Thus, this type of analysis actually explains why the responsibility of developed country population is so much greater in global climate change. They generally consume more on a per capita basis. They also have household arrangements that are conducive to even higher consumption. In developed countries, the average household size has reduced and emissions have increased because small households consume more on a per capita basis than the large ones because of greater residential land use. Larger dwellings, greater consumption of appliances and automobiles, and thus of energy. In case of developing countries, such changes will be more meaningful since the bulk of world population and population growth is increasingly concentrated in developing countries. The impacts of household change on consumption in different sectors of developing countries would be very useful for policy implications. Now we can talk about population composition and policy options. What kind of population policies might be envisioned in relation to the effects of aging and changing household composition? The demographic options with respect to aging are as incomplete as they have been with respect to mortality. Any action that would affect increased life expectancy in a negative way is as objectionable as suggesting that Malthusian controls will keep population down to manageable levels. Here, appropriate policy relate to healthcare improvements and making city infrastructure and services more friendly to an aging population. Urban areas, in general, provide a more favorable environment for actions that can contribute to a healthy and enjoyable aging. Population concentrations, with its advantages of scale and proximity, increases access to social services and to new technologies that can have important implications for well-being. Urban planning and architecture should devise building arrangements that address the special needs of the aging more than for any other group, besides intensifying energy efficiency in buildings, transportation, and other services. Concerning household composition, the policies included would appear to relate to the economic rather than the demographic domain. Ironically, smaller households result from fertility decline. Fertility reduction policies are clearly not the solution, as smaller households consume more. It would also be politically and socially inappropriate to suggest that people should have more children or that they should live in multi-person households. Smaller households can more appropriately be viewed as part of the consumption cluster of driving factors rather than of the demographic cluster. The similar disaggregation that has been advocated when breaking down the effect of demographic factors on GHG emissions would also look to be essential when discussing where and how fertility reduction would affect global emissions. Improving the relationship between smaller households and emissions would involve economic measures as well as urban planning and architectural innovations. Economic incentives like energy taxes would help in limiting the environmental cost of smaller and more consumptive households living in large buildings, as well as encourage the production of energy efficient appliances and products. Innovative, innovative planning of urban spaces related with engineering advances and construction design that benefit energy efficiency will have to be developed. Furthermore, one might consider increased environmental awareness, raising and information on the environmental impacts of the products. However, there are no satisfactory demographic policies to offset the increasing aging of population. It appears that little can be done from a demographic standpoint for reducing household sizes except to prepare for new type of housing arrangements. The global climate change threatens population growth processes. Given this, the prospects of adding a few billion more is indeed alarming. The small differences in fertility have enormous impacts in the long run. The energetic family planning campaigns thus seem to be a good way out for the world, as well as for those women and families burdened with undesired fertility. However, this evidently simply solution has limitations for climate change. Family planning does not have retroactive effects, and the world will continue to face an enormous environmental problem even without a single additional birth. The demographic effect of family planning is retarded by inertial factors that extend large population growth for decades beyond the initial fertility decline. Therefore, family planning does not produce immediate results. The social development is required to motivate people to use contraception effectively, but this same development also stimulates consumption. Thus, in the short run, rapid declines of high fertility levels will have little impact on global climate change. Even more challenging is the fact that economic growth in large and populous developing countries, whether or not they have already attained low fertility, will eventually be completely mismatched with the scale of present mitigation efforts under current standards. In short, if the current resurgence of concern about population growth generates support for the basic right to good reproductive health care for all women, particularly those who are unable to attain their desired family size, then it constitutes a most positive step for women's empowerment, for social human welfare, and for long-term environmental results. But in reality, even the most intense population control effort is not likely to relieve people of the need to considerably redefine development as well as to build the pathways that will achieve new development models. Attention which is being paid to other demographic dynamics and their potential contribution to mitigation is inadequate. Presently, urban growth processes are at a vital stage given the sheer number of people involved and the importance of cities in future global economic, social, demographic and environmental scenarios. Cities which has been for a very long time treated as prime offenders in environmental processes could actually play an important role in both mitigation and adaptation efforts. Asian and African countries which are undergoing rapid urban growth have an opportunity to make this process work for their own welfare as well as for global environmental well-being. In order to take advantage of this opportunity, drastic changes in approaches and the adoption of effective and participatory strategies to urban planning aimed at improving energy efficiency, reducing emissions, and providing adequate housing and living conditions for the poor will be required. So students, let us sum up what we have learned from this module. To sum up, we can say that there is a need to discriminate between the impacts of different population groups when drawing up future scenarios. Advances which has been made in the field of population composition, however, are still soaring the tip of iceberg. Therefore, if further research is required to understand how the impacts of aging and different household structures will differ in countries at different levels of development and that have different patterns of social organization. The population policies which are able of adjusting to this changing and differentiated context have yet to be clearly defined. Eventually, the bitter reality that people face is that consumption aspirations and practices will have to be critically curtailed in order to reduce the threats of global climate change. Stabilizing population growth, putting urbanization to work for mitigation, designing more energy efficient homes to accommodate new demographic compositions, all this is necessary and helpful but still insufficient. However, many developed countries have already outstripped the Earth's capacity to withstand development. Even then, developing countries are desperately trying to emulate the lifestyles and the consumption practices of developed societies. Even though at the aggregate level, they still have a long way to go, they are already starting to make their own massive impact on global climate change. In order to solve this mystery, there is a need to redefine not only development but also the strongly material content of the modern day happiness. That's all with today's lecture. I hope you must have enjoyed it. Thank you.